Good morning. Hey, friends. Welcome. Good morning, good morning. Hello, Jen. Uh, Here we are again. Hey, I want to quickly point this out. Right down below me here, I set a goal for March of having 20 followers. We are almost there, folks. We're almost there. Just a tiny, tiny bit away from it. So, yeah, we'll probably, maybe, possibly hit my March goal, which would be kind of exciting. But in the meantime, welcome to my stream. Welcome to my painting nook. And today we're going to continue to work on the Warcry minis that we have been painting on stream this week. I'm feeling really good about this stream so far. And let's see, today is day number 4. For me, that's, not bad. Sticking to a schedule, actually getting myself out of bed in the morning and dragging myself in here and getting things set up. So yeah, I feel good, and I am so glad to have you folks joining me, and I'm looking forward to trying out some new techniques. So today, we're going to try working on the marbling. So I talked yesterday about the idea that I have to do some marbling techniques on these bits of masonry that are at the base of some of these pieces. They're not a huge area. In fact, they're quite a tiny area. So I'm going to be working in minute detail. And it's probably going to be subtle. It may not be something that most folks picking this up and playing with at the table. This is the store demo for Battleground Games and Hobbies in Abington, Massachusetts. So it's probably, it might be too subtle to be seen at a quick glance, but I'll know it's there, and it's good practice, which is part of what this stream is about, is learning new techniques and doing new things. So we're gonna try that. I also want to see if I can finish one of these two pieces here. We did a bunch of painting yesterday on this one. We painted the skulls because we had a bunch of leftover skeleton bone paint that I had gotten out of the eyedropper and didn't want to waste. So I feel like there's a good chance I could finish this if I really apply myself. And that would keep us on our schedule of completing one piece per day average. Admittedly, yesterday's piece was quite tiny, but we got the base coat done on this little piece here yesterday, as well as putting paint on some of the other pieces. This is the piece that I did off stream, so this piece I did earlier. And this is the piece that I did Monday and Tuesday. So we'll see what we can do. To start out with, this piece here has a little piece of broken masonry there, and a piece there, and this is a little arch of broken masonry. Oh no, just this little bit here that comes out this way. So I'm gonna get those painted quickly. So we're back to our deck tan, Vallejo deck tan, and we're continuing to use my favorite brush in the entire world, which is my Citadel small layer brush that I use for almost everything. Not going to be able to use that when we get to the bigger pieces. Do I have tips for maintaining a steady hand? That's a good question. So I definitely brace the piece. So when I'm painting, you'll see that I'm holding the piece in my right hand because I'm left-handed, and then painting with the left hand. And in general, I have my arm braced on the table, so I'm not holding it in space. My arm is resting on the table while I hold it. And then my other hand, I'm usually, if you'll notice, I'm usually holding it on my braced arm. So again, I'm not holding it in space, because I'm going to be doing this for a couple hours, and even with a very, very light model, eventually you don't want to exhaust your muscles. So yeah, I'm usually like basing my hand, like holding my hand on something as I'm painting. So my fingers are free, obviously, but I'm not. But it's mostly a subconscious thing. I don't think about it. I'll try and notice how I'm bracing myself and mention it during the stream. But that's an excellent question. I actually do have a friend who's a regular at the Abington store who has a couple of friends who have twitches and can't do miniature painting because of that. Or can't do it the way I do it, I should say. I feel they could absolutely have legally painted models. So the painting requirement for official, like 40K or Warhammer tournaments is that you have 3 colors on your model. There's no requirement that it look a particular way. And certainly with some armies, a great deal of precision is not required. If you're painting orcs, for example, I feel like you could easily do sort of splotchy, quick color that covers the model without being as precise as I am. It would look different, but there's nothing wrong with different. It might not win you any painting competitions because there's a very strict rubric that is used in the judging of painting competitions. Things have to be painted in a certain way. It's not always the way I do the painting too. So yeah, I have my hand actually on the table here, my right hand that's holding the model, and my left hand I am sort of putting the heel of my hand on my right hand's pinky there, so that the table is actually doing all the work of holding everything steady. And my hands are just like clamps holding the model in place. I have heard, or perhaps read a story, I can't recall where I heard this, about somebody who went to a official Warhammer event at a convention at one point and was told, because they had gray plastic models, they had unpainted models, that they couldn't participate in the event. So they bought 3 cans of primer, went in the parking lot, and just sprayed the army 3 colors. Just feet, middle, head. And then played in the tournament. Because that's all, technically, that is required to participate in one of those high-level tournaments that actually has that sort of restriction. I will say, if you're playing at Battleground, I don't think there's anybody who would hold you to the 3-color rule. I see gray plastic on the tables all the time, and there's no shame in it. Because everybody everybody I know has massive amounts of stuff that they have not finished work on. Hey, I think, folks, that's it. Honeybee 12 pushed us over the 20 mark. We have met my follower goal for March on March 31st. I'll have to set a new follower goal next month. I don't want to be too ambitious. Maybe I'll do 25 for April. But thank you, thank you, thank you. It's nice to set goals and meet them. I'm so glad that Andrew's chat is coming in here and hanging out with me. If you folks ever get bored, feel free to play that gardening game that my bot periodically talks about. It's basically the heist game that these bots come preloaded with. I'm not into heists, or at least I don't feel like that rivalry is needed, or I don't feel like I should encourage criminal behavior in my chat. So I rewrote it as a gardening game. And you can get my chat's currency, which is leaves, I believe. No, seeds. Seeds. It's been a while since I wrote that. Liz the Bard, hello. Welcome. Man, I am getting all the follows. Greetings. Welcome to the stream. So folks, what I'm doing, I'm just quickly painting some of this broken masonry that's at the base of this figure, and then we're going to experiment with a new painting technique, which is part of what this stream is all about, is me pushing myself to do new things. And we're going to try and do some marbling detail on these bits of masonry. So I had some fun hopping into Andrew's stream yesterday. It was definitely entertaining. The return of the 10 Rabid Bears Jackbox, which we haven't had for a little while. I couldn't participate much because I was hopping in from work. That was me as Battleground Games Live. I love the energy and the enthusiasm that Andrew brings to his streams. So on the off chance anybody is watching who is not already following 10 Rabid Bears, you should. He's a friend of mine and a friend of Battleground, and a fun person to watch. I don't know if Oswald was yelling. Oswald was definitely being weird with the 8-ball. Dang it. I blepped some paint onto here that I didn't want here, and I was trying to extricate it with my brush, and instead I just smeared it around. That's fine. I can paint over that. You can always paint over stuff. That is absolutely one of the things that you learn when you're painting minis, is painting over stuff is easy and fixes a wide variety of mistakes. As long as you don't end up doing it so many times that the layers of paint actually obscure any of the detail in the model, you're fine. And of course, I've talked about a lot on this stream the fact that I don't tend to water my paints down as much as I probably should. So I'm working with thicker paint than most folks who do painting are. So sometimes the detail of the model is in danger when I am painting. How do I ensure that the paint goes on smoothly when I don't water it sufficiently? Well, for one thing, I'm using the Vallejo paints for the most part. Citadel paints have a tendency to be thicker, goopier, and do require a bit of watering down. And for another thing, just my particular painting technique involves getting very, very little paint on the brush. So even if it's not super watered down, you can see I'm just getting like the tiniest little dab of paint on the tip of the brush. It gives me more control that way. And then I'm spreading that paint on the model. Probably when I get to the larger terrain pieces that I'm going to have to be painting later this week and next week, I probably will have to water my paints down, use a larger brush, and go a lot faster. Because if I do it this way, where I'm just using tiny amounts of paint and working in very precise detail, it's going to take me forever. I'm not a fast painter. As you can clearly see. Which is part of why I started this stream. This painting stream is that I wanted the motivation to do some work. And I figured having some folks to chat with while I painted would make it easier. In the olden days, I could have gone to Battleground and hung out with the other folks who were painting on, say, a painting social on Monday, which we used to have. But those are not a thing that we're doing right now. So this is the best way to hang out with folks while I paint. Yeah, we were talking a little bit ago about painting when your hands aren't super steady. And I completely get it. If you're trying to achieve a certain effect and your hand is not that steady, it can certainly be frustrating. I was saying earlier that I think there's probably, you could go for a different, less precise effect. I don't know. I'm lucky enough to have fairly steady hands, and I can do this stuff in the level of detail that I want to do it in. Okay, I think I'm gonna... Alright, so that's this little bit here. Done. And this little bit of ceramic here. Done. Oh, there's a bit of a pillar here. One thing I've talked about before that I always enjoy when I'm painting is discovering the model, because there's a lot of detail in the sculpt that you don't see at first glance, and when you're spending a lot of time with your face like a couple inches from the model, you discover these details that these sculptors put in there, and that's always fun. And then I figure it's my job as a painter to make those details stand out. So anytime I spot something like that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see if I can make it pop out by doing some bright painting on it. You always wanted to go to the painting social? Well, they will probably be returning. I feel pretty confident that they'll be coming back. The general word behind the scenes at Battleground right now is that we are aiming for a mid-July or early July return to many of the things that we've had to shut down over the past year. So, fingers crossed. Everybody go get your jabs, and we'll see what we can do. Oh, you like my Blockbuster mug? My friend Ken got me this mug. Yeah, I love it too. It's one of my favorite mugs because it's huge and holds quite a lot of coffee, and I go through a lot of coffee. But Ken went and visited the last Blockbuster, which is basically now a tourist spot. Although I believe you can rent DVDs there. And he got himself a Blockbuster card, and he sent Blockbuster cards to me and my wife. And he sent us Blockbuster swag, which is awesome. Many of my friends, including myself and my wife, worked for Blockbuster back in the day. So it has nostalgic value. All right, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to try out this marbling technique. Let's do a quick Google image search and figure out what we want to achieve here. Alright, so here's what marble can look like. And it's got sort of striations in it, it's got layers, it's a metamorphic rock that has been heated and compressed. And it's not something that was liquid at the time, it's just something that got mushed down into this form. So what you want is these sort of lines and layers in it, and whorls. Oh, these are some good examples here. And you don't want them to be orderly or regular or anything like that. And the way we're going to achieve that, I was telling Jen yesterday, this is a technique that Amanda recommended, that she learned when doing set construction. But we're going to achieve that by putting some extra paint in different colors on, and then if you were doing it on a larger scale, on like a flat or a set piece, you would, just sort of paint some random lines on, and then you would mudge it around with a sponge to make it less. You don't want the edges to be too harsh. You want it to be less defined and a little bit granular, I guess. So I have a tiny wedge of sponge, and I'm going to add some other paints. I'm going to use some Castle Gray, which is just a basic gray paint. And I'm going to use some off-white, which is actually a very, very bright white. I have to be very careful with that, because it says off-white, but this is one of the brightest whites that I currently have in my collection. That came out good and thick, didn't it? And this is a case where I don't really care if I get brush strokes in it, because I'm going to be mashing it around anyways. Oh, cat hair stuck in the paint. That'll happen. Okay. I need to get myself some tweezers. I'm just going to add some. That needs to be thicker. This is too watery. I'm going to add some random lines. And then we'll scooge it around, or just sort of mash it with the sponge to try and make it look less like lines and more like sediment trapped in the stone. I don't know if this is working, but we'll see. It'll also, I'm going to be doing a wash over this at some point, so let's just mash the sponge into it and sort of mooch it around a bit while it's wet. So on a larger set, this would be done on a larger scale, obviously. I don't know. It gives it a texture. It's not as monolithic as it was. That's not actually too bad. When I put a wash over that, it might actually look pretty good. It's all about experimentation today. Alright, that cat hair is really bugging me. You folks probably can't even see it because it's so fine. But it's getting to me. Some whirls, and I don't want it too regular. Mash it up. Give it that sort of less sharp, more ill-defined texture. I don't know. I don't know if this is doing what I want it to do. Right now, It just looks like faded paint. But probably when I put a wash over it, it'll look better. Try dampening my sponge. I want it to be kind of subtle. Not convinced this is doing exactly what I intended to do, but at least it's breaking up these planes, right? It's making things less solid. And to be fair, marble is not a super clean look. Marble is messy, it's random, it's rough. Alright, so compare this here with this here. It looks not bad. I'm actually not disappointed. Yes, it looks weird. It's not. It's not clean. And as you folks have probably noticed, I like to do things clean. But it does kind of look like marble. You love marbling things? I feel like it's kind of getting the effect that I'm looking for. I just have to be more comfortable with having my model look a little bit more messy. But yeah, if you look at this piece here, and you look at this piece here, this piece looks much more interesting. This cat hair needs to come off. It's obviously, it got into the paint to a degree. I can't get it out without tweezers. Bah! Bah! Alright, so having tested, let's accelerate a little bit. Let's try and get the rest of these bits done in a similar style. We could just sort of blap it on there. Not going for any particular pattern. At some point, not with anything that I'm doing right now, but at some point in the future, I will probably end up doing some camo on models. And camouflage is a similar get the paint on in a random manner. biggest concern is that I don't want this to look like what it is, which is random lines of paint just blopped onto the model. But that's where the sponge comes in. Mash, mash, mash. And as always, a wash makes an enormous difference. So we'll get to that. I think probably tomorrow we'll start applying a wash to some of these. And you folks can see how much of a difference a wash makes. It's pretty astonishing, frankly, how quickly and easily a wash can change the feel of a model. So Jen, I think I fixed that issue that my chat was having with not allowing you to post links yesterday. If you want to try posting a link to your website again, and you can tell chat, although I think since most of them are Andrew's chat, they know already what it is you do, but you can talk a little bit about what you do while I make my model less orderly and more messy. Almost liberating, just splotching paint on there and not trying to follow lines or anything. Am I using various starter brushes? For almost everything, I am using a single brush. This is a small layer brush from Citadel. Small layer. I use it all the time. This is my preferred brush, and I love it. It's just, it fits my style, which is a very precise, clean style, which again is an interesting contrast to what I am doing right now, which is nothing if not messy. I'd say there's, for the majority of the model painting that I do, I use probably 3 brushes. I use this Citadel small layer brush. I use no, that's not it. That's for larger areas. I use this small dry brush. It's a Wargamer small dry brush. I use Citadel and Army Painter brushes interchangeably. They're both good quality. And then I use the Army Painter Psycho brush, which is a very, very fine tip that I use for very fine detail that I want to do, like eyes or lens flare or delicate edging. For the most part, those are the 3 brushes that I use for almost everything. Got some paint on the brown bits there, but that's fine. Okay. So we have dirtied up my model, made it look a little bit more weathered, more interesting. Pretty much achieved the look that I was looking for. And when I get to doing a wash, that should really pull it together. But there we go. Oh, you can sort of see it here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It looks a little bit like marble. No, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's a new technique for me. Something I'm not super comfortable with doing. But I'm pretty satisfied with how the result came out. Cool. Cool. Adding new techniques. That is what we enjoy doing here. Just out of curiosity. Hey bot, how are we doing? 21 followers towards our goal of 20. Nice. Good job, folks. You done it. All right. Let us continue work on these pieces here. So I want to get some brown on these. These things have a lot of these stakes, and that's a lot of area to cover. So I'm just gonna hammer it out. We're gonna see how much we can do in the remainder of today's stream, which is another hour or so. We did that marbling, and I think it came out very nicely. It's a cool effect. I should have done a before and after shot. I probably have before shots. Anyways. Probably going to finish off this bottle. This is my bottle of oak brown that we're using for all the wood. And it's getting low. Probably going to finish that off today or tomorrow. But then I have a backup because I bought this the other day, flat brown from Vallejo. So the oak brown is Army Paints War Paints. It came out of a kit that I bought. But the flat brown is probably pretty close. It's probably pretty much exactly the same thing. So hopefully they'll be interchangeable. But let's just a little faster today because I need to get as much of this done as I can in the next hour or so. So we're going to just see how quickly I can get some brown on here. When we get to the larger pieces, which I showed a couple of them off yesterday, I'm going to need to be significantly faster, or we're going to be weeks and weeks getting those done. I want to have something ready to go on the table when Battleground begins to open up a little bit more. So by July, I want to be done with this. Which sounds like it's a long way off, it being March 31st today. So we've got April, May, June. But I will tell you, I am slow, as we have established, and I have a lot of pieces to do. We'll conclude today's stream by looking at a quick inventory of what we have that we have not touched yet in the Warcry box. This is the 2020 Warcry base set that we're painting, which we took out as a store demo and Serena built a bunch of it right before lockdown. So we had, she built it mostly in one afternoon, which is really impressive. She went fast in the construction of the Warcry demo. Mostly because I think she wanted to jump right in and test out the rule set and play a few games, which she did. That was, like I said, right before lockdown began. She was working on that. And when lockdown began, I took a few of the Battleground store demo things home with me, because I was like, I will have plenty of time to do some painting during lockdown. And maybe I didn't spend as much time painting as I had anticipated. I didn't get much done, folks. In the last couple of months, I've been trying to spend more time getting paint on models. I painted all the figures for the store demo of Underworld, which is a variation on Warhammer Age of Sigmar that uses cards and stuff. So I painted the minis for Underworld. I have some Underworld terrain pieces that are entirely optional to the game. You don't need to, because Underworld uses a hex grid for movement, so you don't need terrain. You have areas of the hex that are blocked hexes, and if you're fancy, you can construct and place terrain bits to represent those blocked hexes. So I built a couple of those, but have not painted them yet. But I did get all the minis for the Underworld demo painted and finished those, I guess in February or so. And that's when I decided, okay, Warcry is next. I'm going to get all the bits of unpainted Warcry stuff that we have and paint those all up so that we can run Warcry demos in the store with painted minis. There's no reason we couldn't run demos with gray plastic. That's what Serena was doing when she was testing out the rules and learning how to play. But I just think it would look cool and reflect well on the store to have a fully painted Warcry demo. And added benefit, all of this terrain can be used for anything Warhammer. I mean, it doesn't even have to just be Age of Sigmar. It could be used as terrain for any Warhammer game, or any game that uses terrain for that matter. There's nothing terribly specific to Warhammer about wooden stakes and skeletons. So, I want to especially get the terrain done, because the more terrain we have in the store, the more tables we can have running simultaneously. So chat, how ambitious should I be with my April follower goal? We got to 21 followers towards my goal of 20 for March. And that's basically, I mean, this channel has been around for a while. I've streamed video games and stuff So not all of those followers came from the last few days. I think probably I got 5 new followers in the last week. And that, I think, is not easily sustainable, because a lot of you folks from 10 Rabid Bears came in and followed, which I really appreciate. But I don't have a lot of, well, how do I want to say it? A lot of communities I can quickly rely on to jump in and follow me as well. I like to believe I have a largish online friends pool, but many of them are folks who don't necessarily watch Twitch chats or Twitch streams, and even those who do probably watch Twitch video game streams more than IRL painting streams. So I don't know how ambitious to be in my April goal. I said at the beginning of this stream, maybe I'd just go for 25. But then we got a couple follows today, and we're up to 21 already. So 4 followers for an entire month. I don't know. I feel maybe that's too few. It's not a life or death decision. Like, if I don't meet my follower goal, it doesn't really impact much. But I like setting goals and I like achieving them. "10 Rabid Bears." Speaking of the 10 Rabid Bears chat, thank you for the follow. Well, there. Now we're up to 22. So I definitely can't set it to 25. I think I'm going to just set it for 30. I'll set my follower goal for 30 for April. And we'll start work on that tomorrow. To be fair, Andrew, I'm very inconsistent in my streaming schedule, or have been in the past. So it doesn't matter. Or I'm not surprised that you hadn't followed me already, because I mostly use this channel to lurk in other folks' streams and subscribe to folks. I don't, or haven't in the past, been doing a lot of streaming on my channel. But I will say, this week has been a lot of fun, because I've had an opportunity to stream more regularly, and it's been a lot of fun getting some painting done and having folks hanging out. I appreciate all of you. And it has made it a lot easier for me to get some painting done. Like, I've done 2 hours a day of putting pigment on models. That's a pretty significant advancement over none hours a day, which is what I was doing for a while. I've said it before, but I had done some painting between customers at the store. Sort of set up on the counter and did a little bit of painting here and there. And it ended up being, it got harder and harder to do that as things started opening up more. More customers. We've been doing a lot of shipping of Magic cards online. Battleground sells cards through their website, and that has consumed an enormous amount of my time in the last couple of weeks. So I went from maybe getting a couple hours a week to spend time painting models to basically none. Like, I've done so little painting prior to this stream in the last couple of weeks. Every week I would haul my models, the store demo models that I'm working on. I'd haul them to the store along with a plastic bag full of paints and brushes and my Citadel pot and all the things I needed to do some painting, and I would just never have a chance to do anything with them. And I don't begrudge the store, the business. That's what I'm supposed to be there for, is to be shipping cards and helping customers, and it's nice that things are going well enough at the store that I don't have the time to paint. But there's a certain degree, because you have to set everything up before you can start painting. Fill your water pot, get the paints you're going to use that day and the brushes you're going to use that day out. Take the models out. And I was getting to the point where, and then when you're done, you have to put it all back. Unless you have a dedicated painting space like I currently have here at home, the space that I am painting in at this very moment. So that probably added 20 minutes to any day in which I was going to do painting, is just getting stuff out and putting stuff away. And the result was, I wasn't getting any painting done. And it was upsetting to me. I felt like I was letting myself down because I wasn't getting the things done that I wanted to get done. So I've really enjoyed being able to do this stream. I now have, like, the first couple of days of this stream, I was painting in my kitchen. And now I have myself set up in a painting nook in our guest room, which is our hobby room here. So now I don't have to put everything away at the end of my painting stream. I just have to dump out my water pot and move the webcam, because Amanda streams using this webcam every night at 11 o'clock. All right, 10 o'clock, sorry. But I don't have to put all my paints away and put all the models away. So I have a lot more time to actually paint when I decide I want to. And because I've been doing this stream, I have a dedicated time every day where I am going to be sitting down and doing some painting. And as a result, I've been getting a lot more painting done, which is awesome. Perhaps I will actually someday finish this Warcry demo that I'm working on and can move on to other things. So I'd like to make this stream a regular thing that I just keep doing. I'll continue to experiment with new painting techniques, which is a lot of fun. I frequently say I am not a expert or experienced painter, and that some of my learned painting habits are perhaps not the best. For example, the fact that I don't water my paints down at all. But I'll still share what advice I do have. Perhaps that's helpful to you folks in stream. But it's good to just get stuff done. So how's everybody else doing this week? How's everybody out there holding up? Busy? Nice. I mean, that's good, right? It was good to have a Jackbox stream yesterday, Andrew. That was some madcap silliness going on there. It's weird. So, Andrew, you took sort of a hiatus from Jackbox to play other games and stuff. And Pi has been dealing with family things, so she has not been able to do a lot of Jackbox on her stream over at Insidious Pi. And the result is I haven't been watching or participating in very much Jackbox in the last couple of weeks. And it's, I don't know, I would say Jackbox games have sort of been the thing that defines social interaction through this pandemic for me. It's the way that folks got to hang out. More so than like Zoom calls and things, which are, I've done a few Zoom calls. I have a family Zoom call I do every week. But in terms of social interaction, it's been Jackbox. And then for the last couple of months, very little Jackbox. Oh, okay. Do dog stuff. That's important. Making progress. not going to finish this piece of terrain today, but if I can get enough done right now, I should be able to finish it tomorrow. And I say finish, I mean finish the base coat. We're definitely going to have a day soon when we do a Washapalooza and get washes on a whole bunch of these models. And that'll be fun. So, Jen, you asked earlier if I had a favorite model to paint. And when I jumped into Warhammer, which was about this time last year, I would say, I started out with, or no, I'm sorry, not last year, the year before that. Man, time is weird in pandemic days. Yeah, about 2 years ago, I started playing 40K, maybe a little less than that. We started doing Kill Team at Abington because it was a good entry point, easy to start level of play. Because for those of you not familiar with it, Kill Team is a squad-based variant of Warhammer 40K, where you play with between 100 and 250 points worth of models, which works out to a squad of perhaps 10 to 12 models or fewer. It's not huge. It's not a large number of models to bring to the table, so it's easy as a starting point to jump in on. And I had wanted to get into 40K for a while. It's intimidating because there's a lot. It's a lot. But with Kill Team, I was like, okay, I can just do this. I can just build a small squad and use that to, start out with Warhammer. So that's what I did. And I chose based on aesthetics. I didn't know it at the time, but what has become very apparent to me is that I get more enjoyment out of building and painting the models than I do out of playing the game. I enjoy playing Warhammer, but I enjoy painting and building the models more. It's just how I come at the game. But the advice that I had received from a number of people was, you're going to be spending a lot of time staring at these models. You're going to become intimately familiar with these models. Choose something you think would be fun to paint. So I chose Tau. This is partially because my earliest modeling experiences were building Battletech models as a kid in the 80s. And many of the Tau have a familiar Battletech-y look to them. Made some progress there. Yeah. And I really enjoy how the Tau models are constructed. Now, I am not a fast painter, and prior to this stream, didn't have my home painting area set up, so I only really got a chance to paint when I was at the store and not working, like not actually helping anybody. And if I was on the clock at Battleground, it felt particularly egregious to work on my own stuff when there are store demo models to paint. Like if I'm going to be painting on the clock at Battleground, which I don't do right now because I've got this stream and I can paint at home now. But if I'm going to be painting on the clock at Battleground, I'm going to be painting something for the store, not my stuff. So the result is, I have not had a lot of time to work on my Tau, except for right at the beginning of the pandemic, or right at the beginning of lockdown. I bought a bunch of new minis, a bunch of Tau, and brought them home, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be locked down, I'm going to be in my house, I'm not going to be going out. This is my time. I will do so much painting. And then I did no painting. I did a little. But the result is I love painting Tau, and I've got a bunch of models lying around. I just haven't applied paint to most of them. I had a friend give me an extra fire team because he was getting out of Tau. So I have an unpainted extra fire team. But these are a couple. These are a couple of my painted Tau that I have. This is actually one of the first. This is probably the first 40K model I actually finished. Or certainly in the first team that I actually finished. I had painted other stuff for like the Battleground painting competitions, but these were the first Warcry things that I finished. Or I'm sorry, the first 40K things that I finished. And I've got, a full fire team of thems. And I've got a few stealth battle suits around. But I haven't done as much as I would like. One advantage of this stream is that I will probably get an opportunity to spend more time on my Tau. We'll get to that later. So that was about half an hour. I started at 11 o'clock-ish. In about half an hour, I was able to do all these steaks front and back. So that gives us a good benchmark. Good idea how long it takes me to do something. Let's work on this piece a little bit. Yeah. If I'm going to finish any pieces today, it might be this. But I might not. Might not finish any pieces today, but I might make a bunch of progress on several pieces, and then finish a bunch tomorrow, and we'll continue. We'll be on our one-piece base coated a day path. I thought I had done most of the skulls on my pieces, but obviously this piece I didn't do any of the skulls. And got one other piece I haven't done any skulls on. It's fine. It's fine. They'll all get done eventually. Andrew, you're going to work outside? Like, not inside? I don't even know what that is. It does seem like a fairly pleasant day today. I can hear the birds. I don't spend much time outside. I have very fond memories from my childhood of camping trips and hiking and backpacking and that sort of thing. But aside from the Great Clara hunt, when our cat got out and we spent 2 months walking all over the neighborhood and putting up posters and that sort of stuff, I would say I never go outside. I go from my car to Battleground, and from Battleground, that's a skull, isn't it? Okay. From Battleground, back to my car, and back to home. In the past year, I have been in a grocery store twice. And I got takeout 4 times, each of which required me to go into a lobby just to pick stuff up after my order was ready. And Amanda and I have gone out to visit Pi and hang out in front of her apartment briefly a couple of times, deliver bread and such. Let's see. I think that's it. I think that's it for going outside. Other than that, I have been home. And frankly, that's my best life. That's kind of how I want to be. I never want to go outside. I am quite satisfied to be indoors, playing video games, or reading or painting, playing some D&D. I do miss playing games with people. So hopefully, in a couple of months, once I am fully vaccinated, I'll be able to do some board games with friends again. Like going to Battleground, do a Friday board game stream or something. Haven't been able to do that in a while. Yeah, that's a good point, Andrew. Once you have another human being that relies on you, you probably don't want your child's entire experience of the world to be just you and your wife and your dog. Now, I realize that your particular bubble, you've been able to spend more time with people than Amanda and I have done. But it makes sense that you would want to be able to take the tyke out. Part of growing up and of being a child is seeing the world and trying to stuff things in your mouth that you shouldn't stuff in your mouth. And how do you do that if your entire life is spent indoors? What has this last year taught us about how life in an enclosed colony on Mars or the Moon or something like that would be? I mean, Amanda reads a lot about McMurdo Air Base in the Antarctic. And it's a similar situation where you're completely isolated. All your supplies come in the summer, which is our winter. And then during the winter, you're just there. You cannot go outside. You cannot do anything. You don't see people who are not part of your team. And a certain degree of madness sets in. And then this pandemic has been the same thing basically for everybody on the planet. I think what I have learned is that I myself miss being able to hang out with people and play board games, but not to such a degree that I think it impairs my enjoyment of life. Like, yes, I wish I could play some board games with folks, and I miss being able to go out and have dinner at a restaurant with people. Oh, I miss going to movies. I miss going to movies. But and I could just be overcompensating or lying to myself, but I feel like aside from those things that I miss, this is what I want to do with my life, is to be indoors and spend time with friends on the internet and never ever go outside. So, for me, personally, it's not been a terribly great hardship. If I were not employed in retail in a store that required, going in and spending time at a register, I probably would not, and had we not had the Clara incident, I probably would not have gone outside at all for most of a year. And I feel like I would have been okay with that. But not everybody is like me. I acknowledge that. There are people who need to see other people. And I'm sorry that those folks have had such a rough year. I will say, having been through this year, I am probably never, for the remainder of my life, going to go to a store to shop for clothes ever again. That is not something I miss. That is not something I ever desire to do again. I am probably very, very rarely going to actually go into a grocery store. I am used now to getting groceries delivered. Amanda and I have gotten quite used to it. Maybe periodically, when we run out of something, we'll run out to the grocery store. But I anticipate that from now on, I will probably get most of my groceries delivered. And I'm sorry to GameStop, but I will probably never go into a store again to buy a console or video game. I do want to buy games on physical media. I got a PlayStation 5 the other day, and I got one with a drive for two reasons. One, so that I can watch Blu-rays on my PlayStation 5, and two, because I prefer to have my games on physical media. It's because I'm old. It upsets me to no end. Like, it is one of my most, one of the things that annoys me most about modern gaming is that even when you physically own a disc, you probably can't play a game unless you have internet access to download updates to it. Which means that many of the games I buy these days, even if I get them on physical media, have the danger of not being playable at some point in the next, 10 years, because the servers that hold the updates will eventually be decommissioned. and those games will be unplayable. And oh, that grinds my gears. Like, the whole idea of media not as something you own, but as something you pay for, but then only get access to as long as the company that owns the rights allows you to. That rubs me wrong. Like, I've definitely enjoyed streaming movies and TV shows and stuff over this past year. But I want to have my physical media so that in the event that I cannot stream, I still have the ability to watch my movies and TV shows. I don't know. I dread the future. I dread an all-digital world where I own a lot, like a staggering number of old video games. I have a vast collection of N64 games and PS2, PS3, PS4 games, Xbox 360 games, hundreds, literally hundreds of games. And the Wii and N64 games that I own, I can continue to play as long as my Wii and N64 continue to operate. And in particular, the N64 is probably going to last for decades. So anytime I want to pull out and play Link's Awakening, sure, I can just pop that in and play it. And it's going to play just as good 10 years from now as it plays today. Compare that to, say, Spider-Man Miles Morales. If I uninstall that from my PlayStation, and I have the disc 10 years from now, and put it in my PlayStation, but Sony no longer has the game listed online, or, the patches are not available, will it play? Possibly not. That's upsetting. I love going back and replaying old games. I'd say I do that more than playing new games. So the idea of not being able to do that anymore is frankly crushing. Oh well. The dangers of an online world. Nobody owns anything anymore. Well, except the corporations. I guess that's an advantage to something like Warhammer. They could stop printing the manual, but that doesn't make the manual stop existing. As long as you have the models. You could pull this out and play it a millennia from now, and it would play just exactly the same as it does now. Not that I expect to be here a millennia from now. But you get my point. Wouldn't it be kind of fun for archaeologists 1,000 years from now to come across somebody's completely done Warhammer demo or Warcry demo and to be able to pull it out, read the instructions, and just play it? Do you think archaeologists would do that? I mean, there was a guy who made bread using yeast from ancient Egyptian urns in the last year or so. I feel like there are archaeologists who would absolutely play some random game that they found, as long as they had the full instructions and the ability to read them. Man, we're making some good progress here today. Almost done with this piece. Well, with the wood bits of this piece. Pretty good timing. Sounds windy out today. Of course, it always sounds windy where I am. Amanda and I moved into a place that's up on top of a hill, so the wind can get quite fearsome at times. And let's get these little bits here, and then we'll be done with painting wood for today. All right, there we go. So, let's review what we got done today on stream, because I feel like this was quite productive. And thank you again, everybody, for joining me and hanging out while we got some painting done. Okay. So, we started today with learning some new techniques, and we did some marbling on the bases of these, and I'm actually pretty happy with how that came out. It looks somewhat like marble. Yeah. Oh, look at that there. It looks right. So that was a cool new technique to learn. A good use of our time. And then we worked on some of the wood portions of some of our bits. So I did all the stakes on this one here. Need to do the bottom piece here. But yeah, if I do the bottom piece here and these little bits here that are the twine, this piece will be done. So that'll be done pretty quickly. This piece here, we got all the wood covered. I noticed there's a bit of this stake here that needs to be touched up, but that's quick and easy. So this piece we need to do the skulls and the twine, and that will be done. So we'll finish those two tomorrow probably. This piece here has a bit to do. So we have to do wood, skulls, and twine, but we got the masonry done today. I noticed there's a couple of bits of this brass that needs to be done as well, but that's quick and easy. So we may possibly be able to complete 3 pieces tomorrow, and that would be exciting. Then there's a few more small pieces that we have to finish, or basically some of them I have to start on. We have these planks, which are sort of used as walkways in the game. They'll go as bridges between pieces. I've done just the very tips of them, but they just need a lot of brown. I'm going to use 2 shades of brown, one for the boards and one for these wooden logs. And I've got 2 of those. So those I still have to do. And then I've got these little chest-high walls. Got 2 of these. And again, that's going to give me an opportunity to work on my marbling. I have to figure out what color to make these bricks. I'm not going to make them brick colored, just because I don't like the idea of that contrast, like a brickish red and the marble that I've been doing. I'm probably just going to keep them gray, but make them a lighter gray. Anyways, work on those sometime soon. And I've got 4 tiny pieces that are not really terrain, they're just battlefield stuff. So this is like a broken pillar with some amphora lying around it and just debris. I've got 2 of those. And I've got these 2 little fountains. Those are going to be fun because I'm going to be experimenting with using resin as liquid in a fountain. So that's going to be a fun experiment, probably sometime next week. We'll get to those. That's all the small terrain. Then we have the large terrain. We looked at this yesterday. So, yeah. Compare and contrast. This is the largest piece of terrain I have painted so far, is this little thing here. Compare it to this, which is the smallest of the large terrain pieces. There's a lot more area to cover there. I'm gonna have to use different techniques to get these larger pieces done. I have to worry less about the details and come back in and do fine details on like smaller areas of them, but just I need to paint fast and get large areas done. So I've got this with the bell. I've got this, which Jen said had a Planet of the Apes feel to it. It's a platform and stairs over a busted head of a statue. It's going to be fun to paint. And then I've got 4 large terrain pieces that are just walls. They're going to be fun to paint, but it's going to take me a while to get them done. So those are something I'm going to be working on probably next week. We'll get to those. And yeah, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Then we'll get back to some of the minis. So here are all the character minis for the Warcry demo. The iron golems I have base coated, so they are ready for a wash. And when we do Wash-a-Palooza Day, we'll put a wash on these guys. So there are 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, just 8. There's 8 iron golems. And they're, like I said, completely base coated, ready for a wash. And then it's just edging and fine detail. So they'll go pretty quickly. Then I have the Beastmen. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Beastmen. They are mostly unpainted. I've primed them, so they're ready to be painted. A couple of them, I've started doing some flesh tones on them. So here, this dude has some flesh tone applied to him. But they're going to be another project to get all of them done. And there's, like I said, 9 of them in various cool poses. They're awesome figures, and I'm looking forward to painting them. It's just, I have to make the time to do such a thing. Then there are these, I can't even remember what they're called. These sort of gargoyle-y folks. There's 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, just 6 of them. So there's 6 of these dupers. And then there's the minis that I'm most looking forward to painting. There are 6 of these fellas, which are sort of lizard bird things. These are one of the ones I'm most looking forward to painting because I'm going to have a lot of fun painting these feathers. I'm going to be doing some blending. I'm going to be trying to make them look really cool and distinct. And of course, you know, with like blending in a wash, they're going to look great. Going to be doing these in blues and purples, and these guys in purples, blacks, and reds. So they're going to be a lot of fun to do, but they're definitely a down the line thing. All right, so that's a lot. That's a lot. And one of the things I will do in the next, I don't know, in the next week or so, I'm going to actually make a list. I'm going to actually figure out what we want to have in our list of Warcry terrain and stuff, and figure out what we're going to be working on. I mean, in the short term, probably within the next week, I can finish all these small terrain pieces. All of these should be completed by the end of next week, probably. I don't really know, because I haven't done any yet, how much time to budget for those large terrain pieces. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes me. I know from experience that a base coat on one of these guys, any small figure, a base coat probably takes me a good 6 to 8 hours per figure. I may go faster as we go along, as I get more practice, and as we, because I've got a dedicated 2-hour block every day, I may be able to get more done with those in a faster way. We'll see. But we've probably got, even streaming for 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, we've probably got a good 2 months worth of work to get the rest of the Warcry demo completely painted. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes. But certainly, this is a great way to get these things done, is to have you folks hanging out with me. I really appreciate, I am so glad that you guys came to hang out with me today. I am overwhelmed that we got to, I believe, 22 followers towards our goal of 20. Let's follow our update. "22 followers. Yeah! Good job, folks. Wow, thank you so, so much. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to have some lunch. And I will see you folks again tomorrow morning. And we'll see if we can get 3 pieces done tomorrow. I believe we can get 3 pieces completely base coated tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Be excellent to each other and enjoy whatever art you end up doing. Thanks, everybody. See you later.